Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aisha. Happy New Year! It's a new year, and it's also my booktube anniversary. So I uploaded my first video on January 1st last year, so January 1st 2022, and that makes it a year since I've been on this platform. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here, all of you that have subscribed, that have watched my videos up until now. I really appreciate it, and I hope you stay here and continue to grow and read good books and do vlogs with me. Today's video is just going to be a quick rapid fire of all of the books that I read in 2022. I read 80 books in 2022, and they were a mix of, romance, historical fiction, literary fiction, contemporary fiction, books from several parts of the world, and most of the books that I read were written by women. So one of my goals for this year is to intentionally pick more books by men, because I just find that I subconsciously pick more books by women. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video. The first book that I read in 2022 is Rumesa by Radia Hafiza, a retelling of 3 fairy tales. The next book that I read is Wahala by Nikki May. Chaotic, was disappointing, did not enjoy it as much. The next book I read is Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Iyimide. Loved it, made a reading vlog, go check it out. We have Makida, the Queen of Sheba by Marlon McKinney. Did not find it groundbreaking, it was just there. The next book that I read is Jumi at the River School by Sabine Adeyinka. This is one of my favorite books of 2022. Gave it 5 stars, loved it. The next book that I read is Women Writers, Collected Works and Poems by Evan Robertson. This is just a collection of poems written by women, was not groundbreaking. The next book I read is We Wrote in Symbols, Love and Lost by Arab Women Writers, edited by Selma Dabag. Loved it, amazing, lots of love, lost, passion. The next book that I read is Monster Mind, Dealing with Anxiety and Self-Doubt by Afonso Casas. Amazing graphic novel, loved it. The next book that I read is A Match Made in Heaven, British Muslim Women Write About Love and Desire, edited by Claire Chambers. Was disappointing, not really groundbreaking. The next book that I read is Love in Color, Mythical Tales from Around the World, Retold by Bolu Babalola. Amazing. The first story was very slow, but I loved it. The next book that I read is Love is Beautiful When in Bloom by Lara T. Karim, also a short story collection. Very interesting read. The next book that I read is Who's Loving You, edited by Sarita Domingo. An anthology, was disappointing, sad love stories, not my cup of tea. The next book that I read is The Mountains Sing by Nui Fan Kwe Mai. This is my favorite book of 2022, loved it, 5/5. The next book that I read is Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung, a collection of short horror-esque stories. Amazing, loved it, recommend it. The next book that I read is You Truly Assumed by Leila Sabrin, was disappointing, about 3 Black Muslim girls. Not very well done representation, but you might enjoy it. Next book that I read is The Stone House by Yara Hawari, a very short multi-generational novel about Palestinians living in Israel. The next book that I read is The Accusation, Forbidden Stories from Inside North Korea by Bandi. Amazing, loved each of the stories, very sad. The next book that I read is Required Reading for the Disenfranchised Freshman by Christine R. Lee. Was not very groundbreaking, deals with racism in college, so it was just there. The next book that I read is The Watermelon Boys by Ruqayya Iziden. Loved it. Set in Iraq during the World War II, features 2 characters, one Iraqi and one Welsh. The next book that I read is Allah Loves by Omar Suleiman. Absolutely love it, 5/5, would highly recommend. The next book that I read is The Old Woman with the Knife by Gu Byung-mo, translated fiction about an old woman who happens to be an assassin. Loved it. The next book that I read is One Breath at a Time by Salatu Isule. This book deals with grief and how to handle it from a religious perspective. Was a decent read. The next book that I read is Blood Fist, the complete short story of Malika Mustadraf by Malika Mustadraf. This is a collection of short stories by the deceased Moroccan writer Malika Mustadraf. The next book that I read is Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls, 100 Real Life Tales of Black Girl Magic by Lily Walkner. I don't know how to pronounce this name. Graphic novel, very cute, small, very empowering. The next book that I read is The Kingdom of God, a fully illustrated commentary on Surat al-Mulk by Asim Khan. Very brilliant tafsir on Surat al-Mulk from the Quran. Loved it. The next book that I read is My Pen is the Wing of a Bird, new fiction by Afghan women, edited by Laisi Doset. I think that's her name. Loved it. These are brilliant writings from unpublished Afghan women writers from inside Afghanistan. Loved it. The next book that I read is Front Desk from the Front Desk series by Kelly Yang. Amazing. Mia is an amazing character. She's Chinese American, so it was very enlightening. Love that. The next book that I read is Avatar: The Last Airbender, Tough Bayfon's Metal Bending Academy by Faith Erin Hicks. Loved it. Was nice seeing Tough again. The next book that I read is Beach Read by Emily Henry. Was disappointing and I was irritated. We also have Men Don't Cry by Faiza Gwen. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Enjoyed it. About an Nigerian French family living in Nice, France. Then we also have People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Was slightly better than Beach Read, but nothing spectacular. Then I followed it up with Book Lovers, also by Emily Henry. Loved it. Very well done. Amazing. The next book that I read is The Color of God, A Story of Family and Faith by Aisha S. Chaudhry. A memoir. Was interesting but ultimately disappointing. Then I followed it up with Three Keys, the second book in the Front Desk series by Kelly Yang. Was nice seeing Mia again. Very well done story. The next book that I read is Track Walker by Alan Garner. Did not really know what was going on in this book, but very interesting and well done writing. The next book that I read is Elena Knows by Claudia Pinheiro. 5/5 would highly recommend this book. Broke me. Then I followed it up with Abandoned by Sangeeta Banyopadhyay, I think. Interesting book that focuses on the cons of forcing women to have children. The next book that I read is I Want to Die but I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Beck Sehi, a collection of therapy sessions that the author attended during treatment of dysthymia. Interesting. The next book that I read is Minor Detail by Adania Shibli. Very sad story of a Palestinian girl, well, two Palestinian girls told in two different time frames. The next book that I read is Celestial Bodies by Joa Halahati. Was disappointing, set in Oman, so it was interesting to read about that environment. Then I followed it up with The Mama of Bees by Sofia Segovia. 5/5 would highly recommend this book. Loved it. The next book that I read is Peter Orange Tree by Joa Halahati. Was decently written about an Omani student in the UK. Then I followed it up with Paradise by Fernanda Melchor. An unsettling narration, features crime and social commentary. Was decent. The next book that I read is Better Never Than Late by Chika Unigwe, collection of short stories about Nigerians living in Belgium. Loved it. Then I followed that up with Masquerade Season by Kwemi Aguda. Very, very short novella. Amazing sci-fi-esque story. The next book that I read is The Best We Could Do by T. Bui. Graphic memoir. Was very interesting to read. The next book that I read is Josh and Gemma Make a Baby by Sarah Reddy. Very nice, mushy romance. A little bit of sim here and there. The next book that I read is 13 Months of Sunrise by Rania Mamoon. A collection of short stories set in Sudan. You might enjoy it. The next book that I read is An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good by Ellen Thurston. Very, very interesting collection of short stories about a woman that commits murder. Then I followed that up with the second book in the series, which is called An Elderly Lady Must Not Be Crossed, also by Ellen Thurston. Follow-up stories, so it was interesting to read. The next book that I read is Against the Loveless Word by Susan Habulahawa. 5/5 will highly recommend it. The next book that I read is Don't Touch My Hair by Emma Dabiri. 5/5 would highly recommend it. I have a review as well. I followed that up with Someday Maybe by Onye Nwabineli, story about grief and suicide and how to deal with grief. Was disappointing, but you might like it. Then I read a poetry collection called Surge by J. Bernard. Was nice to read and learn about the victims of the New Cross Massacre, as well as the Grenfell Tower fire. The next book that I read is Tomorrow I Become a Woman by Awanose Odafen. 5/5 would highly recommend, one of my best books of the year. Then I followed that up with Black Joy, edited by Charlie Brinkhorst-Cuff, collection of essays written by Black British persons. Was very interesting to read. Then I read Taking Up Space by Oreogubi and Chelsea Kouaki, I think. Collection of advice given by the author to young Black girls going into uni. Then I followed that up with The First Woman by Jennifer Nasubuga Makumbi. 5/5 would highly recommend, one of my best books of the year. Then I read The Comfort Book by Matt Haig. Was decent read, nothing groundbreaking. Then I followed it up with The Queue by Basma Abdulaziz. 10/10 would highly recommend this book, one of my favorite books of the year. Then I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Very sad but empowering and funny memoir by Jeanette McCurdy. Loved it. Then I followed that up with a poetry collection called My Darling from the Lions by Rachel Long. Not my cup of tea, really. Then I also read Blessed Daughter Raised by Voice in Her Head, poems by Wasan Shiri. Absolutely loved it, would highly recommend. I followed that up with A Bigger Picture, My Fight to Bring a New African Voice to the Climate Crisis by Vanessa Nakate. Loved it, 5/5 would highly recommend. I followed that up with We Oigas Have No Say, An Imprisoned Writer Speaks by Elham Tohti. Collection of essays by this Oiga thinker that was imprisoned by the Chinese government. Then I read Natives, Race and Class in the Ruins of Empire by Akala. It's a memoir, non-fiction-esque book that examines race in the UK. Then I followed that up with What White People Can Do Next from Allyship to Coalition, also by Emma Dabiri. I have a review. 5/5 would highly recommend. I then read Demystifying Disability, What to Know, What to Say, and How to Be an Ally by Emily Ladau. Loved it. 101 Allyship for Disability. Very good. Then I read Daily Wed Destiny by Tomi Obaro. Was disappointing. Did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Then I followed that up with Room to Dream, the third book in the Front Desk series by Kelly Yang. Was nice to get to know Mia again. I then read The Secret Talker by Gelin Yang. Was disappointing, nothing groundbreaking. Then I also read There by Tommy Orange, about 12 characters who are urban indigenous American. Very interesting read. Then I followed that up with Things We Do Not Tell the People We Love by Uma Qureshi, collection of short stories that examines different type of love. I followed that up with We Set the Dark on Fire by Talor K. Mahia. I can't pronounce his name. It's sci-fi-esque fantasy kind of book. I actually enjoyed it, surprisingly. Then I read Rebel Girls Mean Business, 25 Tales of Entrepreneur and Investors, graphic novel to encourage girls to, get to know entrepreneurs and investors. Then I read Pleasant View by Celeste Mohammed, collection of short stories set in Trinidad and Tobago. Beautiful, interconnected story. Loved this collection. Then I read Lost Daughter by Elena Ferrante, character-based novel about a woman examining motherhood. Very indifferent about it. Then I read Ada Lovelace Cracks the Code by Corinne Potel, also a graphic novel about Ada Lovelace. Loved that. Then I finished The House of Rust by Khadija Abdullah Bajeva. I'm very glad I finished that book. Very interesting magical realism-ish novel set in Kenya. Finally, I read At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. Very sad novel that examines the effect of war as well as the grief that comes with losing someone at war. So those are all of the 80 books that I read in 2022. They took me on different journeys, emotional journeys. I had so much fun. I cried, I laughed, I was swooning. It was very nice. But now I'm looking forward to 2023 and all of the books that I'll be reading in 2023. There are so many good books coming out this year, but also I have a lot of books in my backlist on my shelf and at the library that I'm looking to examine. If you've enjoyed this video and you've watched it up until this point, comment the celebration emoji because it's New Year. Thank you again, and I hope you're enjoying your new year with your family and friends and loved ones. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye and Happy New Year.